This is the Band Dads Podcast.
You ready? Folks, I'm gonna ask Chris in the editing process to forego our standard intro for this. This is what I told Chris. I said, I want to talk to you about something, and I want to talk to you on air, and I want to talk to you about it without telling you about it. So before we go any further, this is something people are going to have opinions about, and this is something that people are going to feel strongly about. And I ask that you approach listening to this the way I'm approaching discussing this, and that it's done with respect and a conversation in what's good for everyone. So having said that, Chris, I'm going to say publicly, I give you full editing rights on this. And if this episode never sees the light of day, I'll respect that. I'm going to open this episode, and then when we're done, I'm going to hand it to you, and you're going to decide what to do with it. Okay. You ready?
We'll see.
I want to talk about the rifles, but I don't want to talk about the color guard.
Okay.
It's September 10th. A political activist named Charlie Kirk was shot today.
Yes.
In addition, at one of my clients' high schools, Evergreen High School in Colorado, two students and a teacher were shot in a school shooting today.
Yes.
And I want to talk about it.
Sure.
Because it seems like that's all we do is talk about it.
Or think about it, or pray about it, or
offer thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
I don't want to offer thoughts and prayers.
I got you.
So everyone has their opinions about the Second Amendment and guns.
Yeah.
And regardless of your ideology, can we agree that Charlie Kirk didn't deserve to die today?
Most definitely.
And regardless of how you feel about kids, can we agree that kids shouldn't be shot at today?
We can definitely agree on that.
I read an article today after the shooting that said school protectivity, measures that we're taking to protect kids in schools, will top $4 billion in spend this year. That's not better textbooks. That's not more instruments. That's not, better learning environments. That's not newer classrooms. That's not higher paid teachers.
Yeah.
Our own school just put Pretty Bash a Bear on all the fences. People think that's for school spirit. It's not. It's so the shooter can't see inside the fence. Yeah. I don't know if people realize that at Basha.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's why they put, the wrapping I'm talking about.
Do.
And all the doors have shaded things on them now.
I know what
that's school shooter prevention. Here's why I want to bring this up. Whether it's Uvalde, whether it's Buffalo, New York, whether it's Atlanta, Georgia, and now Evergreen, Colorado, they were 18-year-old men or boys who were less than a year removed from high school. And I can't give you an answer to this, but I'm going to ask you a question. Would 37 people be alive today had those kids been in a band program? Would they be so indoctrinated if they were at rehearsal instead of on the internet? Would they be filled with such rage if they had been surrounded by love?
By support.
Would they have been so consumed?
Yeah.
But because, we want kids to learn reading. We want kids to learn science. We want kids to learn math. Well, the shooter in Buffalo, he knew how to write because he left behind a 180-page manifesto.
Right.
The shooter in Georgia counted the steps it would take to do the most bodily harm in the fewest amount of steps. So he knew math.
Yeah.
The shooter in Uvalde, Texas wore body armor, so he understood science.
Yeah.
The one thing that ties all school shooters together, it's not that they're white. It's not that they're male, which they are.
Yeah.
It's that they weren't in music. And I want to know why we're not talking about this.
So, it's a valid point and not one that I necessarily was aware of prior because I don't know. So I'm one of those people that I will take the information at face value, but not necessarily, how do I say, bury myself in it, which at times is good and bad. It means it's almost a way of protecting myself and insulating myself from trying to go down a rabbit hole of negativity that I feel like will just compound if I spend a lot of time on these things versus also, I guess, I don't know, not justifying the individual's motive by spending my own time, thoughts, and considerations on, to your point, like studying an individual who just did something I know is terrible. I know what they did is terrible, and I can kind of declare that and move on. Do you know what I mean? But I think it raises a good point, and ultimately where it ties back to band for us is that band dads is we know what band does for kids, and I don't know, is that the question that's not asked often enough, which is
tomorrow they're going to say about the shooting in Evergreen, Colorado, they're going to say, gosh, I don't understand what's wrong with kids today. Gosh, it's such a broken system. How do we fix it? Right. And I just want to say, well, if you got something that's broken, what I would do is look to something that's not broken. And if you see something that's wrong, look to what's something that's right. Yeah. And here's the thing. You can say, well, it's not the music that makes kids good, or it's not the drill, or maybe it's the parents that are involved, or maybe it's the same director for years. Maybe it's, I don't give a shit what the reason is. The fact is, every data point we know says that if kids are involved in music, or specifically if they're involved in band, they're less likely to make bad choices, whether it's drugs, alcohol, truancy, bad grades, violence, bullying, racism. Kids in band make fewer bad choices. Right. And that alone should justify music for every child.
Yeah. No, that's fair. But I think the problem is to your point, I think initially when these events happen, immediately, unfortunately, the attention on the event gets spun in a direction that is not productive. Again, it may be about the individual, it may be about but what we need to do is take a look at, to your point, what caused it in the first place, and if it's that individual in their mental state or their mental health or whatever it might be, why are we not addressing that first? So to your point, I don't know that spending time on kids and mental health, I guess is I don't know why $4 billion in physical or structural infrastructure changes to a school security is more worthwhile than spending money on mental health and kids. And
if you'll notice, that was the one thing I didn't include as a data point, because there are kids in music that have mental health struggles.
That's true.
And I don't want to minimize a health issue versus an indoctrination or a hate or a gun rights issue. But you're a data analyst. So a long time ago in one of our podcasts, you walked me through that, how you arrive, whether a value proposition, whether something is worth. And you said, when I asked you to what degree of certainty you felt that music was good for kids, and the number you gave me was 80%.
Yeah.
And you said, which is more than enough for me as an analyst to recommend investing.
To make a decision. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So if we know with far more than an 80% certainty, kids involved in music will have higher grades, and they will have less truancy, less dropping out, less drug, less alcohol, less vaping, less fighting, less bullying, less violence. We know that beyond an 80% certainty, and we have multiple data points, whether it's academic, whether it's attendance, whether it's scholarships, whether it's college attendance, whether it's referrals written by teachers.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think I wrote I think I wrote one referral in 15 years. And it wasn't that my kids didn't make mistakes, it's I handled it. So what's it going to take to convince, I don't even want to say our decision makers, our leaders, what's it going to take to convince just the average human being that, whether it's causational or direct, that in order to fix what's wrong, we have to look at what's right. And in order to fix what's broken, we have to look at what's fixed. And by any stretch of any definition, music is the first place you would look.
Yeah.
And yet we're going to spend $4 billion on screens, but not $4 billion on getting more kids involved in music. Yeah. Why, Chris, as a data analyst?
So again, because this isn't about the numbers. It's about people and their feelings. And
how do we make it about the numbers?
I don't know that we can, Scott. If Uvalde can't do it for people, and I know people don't like I know there's
Sandy Hook.
I was going to say the word Sandy Hook.
Kindergartners.
If Sandy Hook can't do it for people, I don't.
The difference of Sandy Hook was, and I think we'd all agree all these people were mentally ill, but that was a 31-year-old man that did that. It was not a high school child 6 months removed from high school.
Yeah.
Now, I have not heard who the shooter was at Evergreen, but I said to my son, I said, have you heard? He said, Dad, is there ever a school shooting where it wasn't a student?
Yeah.
I mean, even he knows that as a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
It was a kid that shot other kids.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that, geez, again, I almost feel like it's like other issues that we've had in this country with when it comes to security, whether it be, airline security, things like that. Unless people are directly affected, unless it's their community, they can keep it at enough of a distance. And I think that's a lot of, and it could be part of the way that we portray things today, that we feel like it is at a distance because everything's through a screen, right? Everything is kind of watched and observed, but it's not happening to me. It's not in my household. This is just something I'm seeing on the internet. It's almost like weird. It's almost like we've taken the fiction that existed watching television and a television show and related that to these real life things that we see on our phones every day. We feel like it's almost the same thing where it's because people can't touch it because it doesn't touch them and their community. I don't know. I feel like people just think they're exempt from it. So to your point, I think they'll say the right thing on the surface and say, let's put, it hasn't happened to us, but we'll put metal detectors in our school just in case or something like that. And it's kind of a false sense of security, just like, airport security is, right? But I really wish I had an answer there. As a data analyst, to your point, you kind of said it already. My job as a data analyst is to not make my life any harder if I don't have to, meaning like if there's already data that exists, if there's already a case that exists, that gets me to the end result that I need to get to, that's the easiest thing for me to do is use this case, use this data, use this thing that I can already say, absolutely, this will solve my problem. Let me just figure out how to put it in production. And then that's my solution.
If we called, okay, so, here's
where I'm going with that is,
I apologize.
No, that's okay. Where I'm going with that is there's a lot of other places in this world that don't have this problem.
Well, and we get into the political nature of how we treat guns in this country, which is not what I want to do. You and I are on the same page on this.
Yeah.
But if we just changed the name of band to violence prevention, could we have the 4 billion, please?
Well, that's a fair point.
If we change the name of band to dropout prevention, can we have the money, please?
Yeah, that's a good point.
If we change the name of band to violence reduction program, can we have the money, please?
Yeah.
Advanced academic achievement, can we have the money, please?
Right.
College readiness fund, can we have the money, please?
Yeah.
Because that's what it is.
I know.
We call it band, but it is all those things. It is violence reduction. It is academic achievement. It's inclusivity. It's anti-bullying. It's all of those things. But because we call it band, we have to fundraise for it.
Yeah. And it almost goes back to the same thing that we've talked about in terms of why people are so naive to begin with is people just, I think they still think band is, hey, if I want to be a musician, I play an instrument and I join band. People don't really look past the scope of the impact of what the activity is, which I think is the bigger challenge that I agree with you that they don't understand the scope of the impact. So that to me is I don't know who solves that problem. I don't know who's the person who figures out how to actually help people understand the impact.
What's crazy is, for people who believe in math, we have the data. For people who believe in reading, we have the studies. For people who believe in science, we have the brain scans we have. Yeah. But it's so funny to me because if you go to any administrator, if you go to a department chair, if you go to a superintendent, anyone who's in a decision-making seat for a school, and you say, tell me about those band kids, they're going to be like, those are the best kids.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that happens on accident?
Right.
They'll tell you with a shuck and awe, those are great kids, best kids on the campus. And I want to shake them and say, well, how the fudge do you think they got that way?
Right.
Do you think, and my neighbor who knows nothing about music, he said, well, is it causational or not? And I said, I can't say with absolute certainty that it's causational, but if I give you 87 different indicators that all say it's the reason, you've got to come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
But we do know that kids that weren't academically successful before music, their grades rise. My own kid, he was a C student in middle school, joined high school band. He became an A student. They know it.
Yeah.
But they don't operationalize it. They don't act on it. They treat it almost as oh, golly gee willikers, those are good kids.
Again, it may beg to a whole other problem, which I know is not necessarily our cup of tea here on this podcast, but it seems like action is not generally taken unless it is done in some sort of political form. Like unless this becomes somebody's platform or forum. I don't know. I feel like I don't see a lot of things that occur in our country these days that are just truly organic movements. It just doesn't really happen. It's got to be somebody's agenda or,
right.
You know what I mean? So I would almost say, unless it does get politicized in a way, that's probably the way to get it attention, which again makes me recoil and vomit in my mouth a little bit. But,
well, yeah, because if it's politicized, nothing will get done.
Right. Then it literally just becomes a soundboard, and that's all that it is.
I mean, in taking it away from guns, charter schools are proliferating all across this country in inexplicable ways, and that's not meant to slam people who operate charter schools, but they're selective. It's just that simple. They don't make better kids; they select better kids,
sure.
Or parents select that school.
Sure.
But people are like, oh my God, the charter schools are exploding. I said, I just want to take out a billboard above the school. It says they don't have music and I do. And I put the public school name right below it.
Yeah.
Because to me, that is unless your kid is, because we're now, and I didn't mean to venture in this space, and it's a little bit heightened because we're at a school that's nationally ranked in football, baseball, those things. But sports is now, if you're not in a club sport by middle school, then you're not going to. So, the average kid, I would say sports are great for kids, keep them out of trouble, but it's only for the select 1% who are born correctly.
No, it's true. Yeah.
And so I just...
But I think, Scott, if we want to move away from people being concerned that we do have some sort of agenda, right, that we don't have when having this discussion, then what you say is true, certainly about maybe removing the gun violence in schools. But again, the impact is much broader than that. That will get people's attention because it's flashy and it's happening. And to your point, again, what happened to Charlie Kirk today is absolutely unacceptable and should just like people want to protect the Second Amendment, that man has a First Amendment right to sit where he wants and say what he wants, and that's absolutely okay, whether you agree with it or not. That's just the way that it is. But this is bigger than just that too. We talked about this a little bit when we talked about the analytics, but when we talk about suicide prevention, right? Let's talk about drug and alcohol abuse. All of these things are almost things that compound on top of each other that all have terrible outcomes for kids and the actions that they take as a result. So in addition to
they all have a positive impact by being in music. That's the second thing.
Correct. That's exactly right. So I'm with you. And I really hope, and I can think about this myself, and I'm honest and I'm open enough to tell my audience that when I was a teenager, again, I talked about at one point that I worked a lot, but I didn't have anything like band in my life. And I made some pretty poor decisions, none that, landed me in jail or anything. But man, I look back now and I have some regret on some of the choices that I made and the time that I lost and the things that happened as a result of me being so idle and not having a community and really looking towards and leaning into people that didn't help me make good decisions.
Well, and to be clear, I was in band and I made some bad decisions. Okay. So I'm not saying that band is a panacea to all problems. But the thing I always say is, because I don't want someone to go, well, just because you're in band doesn't mean you're a saint. I'm living proof of that. But what I would tell you is, here's what I would challenge you. And I think I may have said in an earlier podcast, find me one thing that band doesn't make better.
Gotcha.
And if you can find me that thing, and I think you even challenge the listeners, if you can find something music doesn't make better, reach out to us. And nobody did.
Well, listen, we heard from Dubai at this point, so maybe we can have some coming home with this question as well. So we'll put it back out there again, folks. If for some reason you do think that there's things that band does not make better, let us know.
So. To kind of close this out, and I do want to extend an appreciation for our listeners for allowing us the latitude to have this conversation, and we hope we've handled it respectfully. But I want to circle back to the question that I asked Chris, and I want the listener to answer the question for themselves out loud in their car or walking on their dog or running, which is this. Would 37 people be alive today had those 3 18-year-old boys been in band?
Yeah.
That's we can disagree on the answer, but that is a fair and legitimate question.
Yeah. So I mentioned before, I don't think things happen, much organically these days. But man, it would be really nice to say something different when it comes to, how band impacts people's lives. And maybe that's that we need to remind people as well, is that if you do feel positive about it and you do feel it positively influences your kid, that's really the voice that people need to hear. We've talked about this too. It's not the band director. It's not
100%.
It's not the school bragging about their program. It's the parent who has the use case of, hey, my child's a better kid because of this. Because it's not just one of us. At every school, there's hundreds of us.
And you need to share these stories with the decision makers when it comes to funding a program, and when it comes to scheduling a program, and when it comes to supporting a program. And, I would say flat out, I don't see it as marching band. I see it as drug and alcohol prevention.
Yeah.
I see it as mental health awareness. I see it as academic counseling. I see it as behavior management. That's why I put my kid in music. It wasn't for the F sharps and the flag tosses I saw on Friday night. It was because I knew that he would be a better human being because of it.
Yeah.
And I believe we've got to start calling it out for what it is. You call it band, I call it drug and alcohol prevention. And let's fund it like we fund drug and alcohol prevention.
So then let's visit that real quick.
$4 billion on violence prevention.
Let's visit that real quick. So is the answer funding? Is that the answer? And there's probably not one solution, right? But does that move the dial? Is funding the way to start getting down towards the road of, we can put this in front of more people?
Funding would help existing programs get better. I don't know it would help impact that many more kids.
Okay.
What I would tell you is it's a paradigm shift. We don't ask kids if they want to take English. We don't ask kids if they want to take math.
I would agree.
And I am in favor of opening up the realm of possibilities to be mariachi or rock band or piano lab or
fair enough.
And frankly, I'm fine with any other inclusive art activity.
Yeah.
Whether it's dance, which is a visual musical medium to me.
That's fair.
But to say that every child is going to take an expressive outlet that's more than an individual activity, and I don't mean to be offensive, but I don't see art in that way, because you put on your headphones and you do your art. It's not a team.
I was going to say, we're talking about different things.
Correct. Yeah. So, but I do see drama in that light. I do see dance in that light. I see cheer in that light.
Yeah.
But I would require every child to be a part of an inclusive, expressive activity every year, no matter what. The way we do math, the way we do science, because there ain't no data that says math leads to less drug and alcohol. There ain't no data that says, drugs and alcohol and vaping are increasing, but we require math for 12 years. So show me how that works on the data sheet, Chris. The way I understand it is math increases vaping.
You just made me think of something that, again, I don't want to go down roads we shouldn't go down, but there are things that bother me sometimes. And not that long ago, I stopped by the convenience store that's across the street from our high school, and there's a rep there from like a vaping company.
Are you kidding me?
Giving away samples.
Are you kidding me?
At a convenience store directly across the street from a high school, and I was like,
okay, I'll say it. You're a piece of shit.
I was like, how is this allowed?
You're a piece of shit.
It's okay. You know what I mean?
Like hooking 18-year-old kids.
How is this okay? Anyway, so I would agree with you, because I think that's what happens right now. So band is in music and dance, what are those things? They fall under fine arts, right? Generally, schools require what kind of fine arts to graduate? 2 years? Is it even 2?
No, it's one in Arizona. It's 1 year of a fine or performing art, of which automotive counts.
That's what I mean.
It's so broad.
It gets lost in the mix,
and it's 1 year. And so if you take, how to fix a carburetor, that qualifies you. It's a fine or practical art. It's the way Arizona defines it.
Gotcha.
So it's not a fine art.
Gotcha. Yeah.
There are many states that don't require any of it.
Yeah. So I'm with you. So I think that would be great. If not only the school systems themselves would change their requirements to, again, when you say inclusive, something I guess that's community based, because that's kind of
that gives a kid a tribe, a consistent teacher for 4 years,
absolutely,
a consistent overwatch, a caring adult, and so in light of today's events, I don't want to necessarily talk about gun violence. I just want to reframe the value proposition of this activity that we're talking about.
Right.
And for all you listeners, I want you to first of all, I want you to go back to that premise question. And every time you talk to a decision maker, ask them that premise question. Would those 3 18-year-old boys, 6 months removed from high school, have committed those acts had they been in a band or like activity?
Yeah.
And then the second thing I would encourage them to say is we have to start reframing the way we look at band as violence prevention, as suicide prevention, as drug and alcohol prevention, as bullying, tardiness prevention. That would be the second thing I would say. And the third thing I would say is, if you believe the band kids are good and music is good, then act like it and require it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know that last part, people will kind of wince at, well, you're going to require. Yes, I would require it.
Yeah.
Because I would let you choose the medium. You want to sing, you want to dance, you want to do drama, you want to do, a piano lab or rock band. But I need you to have a creative, expressive, inclusive, collaborative environment for 4 years.
So to some extent now, because I actually do agree with your statement, but let me play devil's advocate a little bit. If we do require it, does it lose some of its shine? Meaning that... is
funding based, by the way. So I want to retract when you said to do that, you'd have to hire a lot more teachers. So that is a funding issue, but go ahead.
So is part of the reason why it is the way that it is because it is people who choose to be there, who want to be a part of that community. The second you start forcing someone to be included in something that maybe they didn't want to, and they're doing it just because they're supposed to, does it have the same effect? I wonder.
Well, so that is what a critic would say is, well, you're using selectivity because those kids chose it. They're self-selecting. But there are studies that say with exposure to music, drug and alcohol goes down. Sure. With exposure to music, turns. So we can prove causational.
Gotcha.
To 100%, no, because every kid's different. But we can directionally, with significance, prove a causational relationship.
Right.
But would it change the activity to some degree? Yes. But I would argue by self-selecting the medium. Listen, I'm not saying you have to do marching band.
Right.
You want to sing. You want to dance. You want to do rock band? We'll get 10 rock bands going, that'll help 100 kids.
Right.
You can select your journey, the activity. So it's still a choice you're making.
Right.
But what we're saying is like we don't ask you if you want to take math. We tell you it is what makes you a better person, will make you more successful in life. I would argue that any argument that you could make for requiring English, math, or science, I can make the same exact argument for music.
I think you probably could, yeah. I don't know what those arguments are, so I don't know why. English maybe English a little bit, but math I feel like
and I will tell in all transparency, the one subject I think music is as important as any subject. I do believe the one subject that trumps all subjects is English. Gotcha. You have to be able to read and write.
Yeah,
I'm a believer in fluency. I mean,
for sure. For sure. Gotcha.
I hope we've given you some food for thought. Again, you know how to find us. We don't need to tell you. And if you have a disagreeing opinion and you can state it respectfully.
I'll tell them feedback@bandadspodcast.com. Both sides of it. If you agree, if you support what we're saying, if you don't, tell us why. Again, I think that's part of what creates a healthy community is conversation. And I know I said this previously, but I may not always agree with a perspective that is not my own, but I work really hard to at least to understand where somebody's coming from. So, I'd love to hear either way. So feedback@bandadspodcast.com.
And this started with a discussion of guns, but it's not a discussion of guns. It's a discussion of the value proposition of music and how we advocate for it.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, I think we can boil down most of those things to something behavioral, right? It's not about the physical thing necessarily. It's about the behavior,
the choices that were made.
Correct. Yeah. So, Yeah, thanks for listening, folks.
Yeah, thanks. We appreciate you. And good, Godspeed and health to those who were affected today.